What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Six Man Show. It is May 24th, 2021. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, how was pickup basketball tonight?
It was great. It was a great time. You and I were talking over text before when I was on my way over there, and I just don't play defense. I'm that guy. I don't really care. I don't play defense, and I'm shooting from anywhere that I want, and that's it. Thankfully, people, when you get into out of college, like, people won't say anything to you about your shot selection, really. At least the people that I play with now. But in college, like intramural and stuff, like, or even just pick up basketball, you had some dudes that just thought they could say anything they wanted, and they would always just make comments to me or whatever. But I don't really care, because that's when I have the most fun. So I'm just chucking, dude. I love to do the Paul George. You kind of like point at the ground a little bit, and you just shoot from the spot. And then if it goes in, it goes in. If it doesn't, I don't really care.
See, I know that as more so the LaMelo Ball, like when he was at Chino Hills coming across the half-court line just pointing and then like pulling up and wetting from 40. But
yeah.
So what is that, like 90% of your shot selection is just coming over half court, taking one or two dribbles and just pulling up? Or are you more like waiting in the corner, hoping the ball swings your way and you get an open spot up?
No, typically I'll if I'm there's a chance I'm pulling if I am taking the ball up the court. There's a chance I'm pulling if it's early game for sure. And there's a chance I'm pulling if the game's on the line. In the middle of the game, I'm probably not pulling because there's no fun with that. I either like to set the tone or end the game. So
you're a high stakes kind of guy.
Absolutely. My adrenaline comes from that, and either that or I'm coming off screens, coming off the screen, curling around it, and trying to shoot immediately. So I try not to sit in the corner too much because people face guard me. And so they just shut me down because I'm slow and whatever. But I'll use all my energy if it means that someone's setting me a down screen or something like that to come off it and shoot off the curl. So yeah, that's kind of the game in my old age.
So what kind of, like, vocal wise on the court, what kind of teammate are you? Are you really vocal? Or are you screaming and hooting and hollering when the guys are scoring? Or are you barking at guys on defense?
I have no. Like I said, I don't play defense, so I'm not about to call out anybody else's defense because I have great self-awareness. I understand. No, I'm the one that's like making jokes. If there is songs on, I'm singing them the whole time, or rapping them, whatever they are, And yeah, I'm just like people that guard me. If they're making comments to me, I'll talk. And they're the big reason that I take ridiculous shots, because if they go in, like, they're never going to hear the end of it from me. If it doesn't go in, I don't care. It was a long shot.
Then you're up in their face the whole way down the other side of the court, like, what's going on here?
Absolutely.
Just quick funny story. I played pickup on Wednesday nights with this group of guys. It's like the third or fourth game that we're playing. I might have already told you this story, but there's this guy, he's a lawyer, and him and I end up, I don't know why I told you that, but we always end up guarding each other each week because we're about the same size. And he's a little older than I am. He's probably in his 40s, I would say. And last week, we're trying to see what the count was, and it was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. I got it going. I hit like 2 threes early on. I had like a mid-range jumper. And they're like, how do you guys have 8? And I'm like, well, I have 5. And the guy's like looking around. He looks at me. He's like, you've got 5? Like, what am I doing on defense? This guy's got 5. I don't even realize it. But no, when I'm out there, I'm very vocal. Like, my team scores, I'm screaming, let's go! Like, hyping my guys up, trying to demoralize the other team. If guys aren't getting back on, like, I'm not the best defender, but I'm an effort defender. I'll be calling out, like, pick up your man, get back. Like, I'll be yelling at everybody. I don't care. Like, I'm out there to win. I only play on Wednesdays. It's the only time I get any type of, like, actual competition. So, yeah, I'm out there. Anyways, that's enough for our pickup corner. The first 5 minutes of this podcast. Now people are like, man, these guys suck. These little freaking white kids. Nobody cares.
And you're probably right. We do probably suck, but it doesn't matter. All right.
No,
I'm having fun.
I was in a group chat argument this week. I was at a birthday party last weekend, and my buddy's 13-year-old kid who's like 6 foot walks over to me. He's like, bet you I could take you one-on-one. And like, the kid, I'm sure he's got some skill, but like I've seen the posts that his mom makes to Facebook of his like rec league games. I'm like, no shot, bro. Like this, I understand that you beat your dad, but this is a different animal. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about that.
I'm not
in
your
group
dad.
chat
I'm
this
your
week.
daddy. You know.
That's right. That's right. Stepdaddy, what's up? And so we're talking about this in group chat this week. My boys are trying to roast me. And I'm talking to my buddy Jason. I'm like, Jason, you know that I'm nice. Like you put $40 up that you would beat me 1-on-1, and I took that money. I said, run me my money. So we're talking about that, and he's like, oh, you're all right. I'm like, no, for like your average Joe, I'm nice. Like if you're just walking down the street, like randomly polling people, like, hey, how good are you at basketball? How good are you at basketball? I'm probably better than like 90% of the people that you're gonna run into and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, when it comes to the average Joe, I am in the nice tier. Like, absolutely 100%. But one day, Luke and I will be able to play together. We'll be able to play with some of the listeners or whatever, and we'll really see what's what,
That'd be a fun
I
time.
guess, so to speak. So, anyways, let's move on past this. Playoff basketball. So, we're recording this Sunday night, a little bit after 10 o'clock. The Knicks-Hawks game, I think, ended, I don't know, like a half hour, 45 minutes ago. Luke, I know you were paying attention to it, like in between pickup games and stuff like that. But man, I like 8 years since the Knicks have been in the playoffs, playing in Madison Square Garden. They had, I think, 15,000 people in attendance, 90% of which were vaccinated.
It was about 75% of their normal capacity.
It was amazing. The atmosphere, the energy from the Knicks fans. One, just because people miss being in buildings for live sporting events, and then they just haven't been in the playoffs for so long, and they're really playing really well. That was just awesome. I don't know how much of that game you actually got to see, but Trae Young hits the game winner with like 0.9 seconds left, saying, yo, it got quiet in here. Like, y'all were screaming at me 10 seconds ago. It got quiet. He said quiet as F in here, and then he was shivering the little ice tray move that he's got going on. But that game was a lot of fun. The Lakers game was pretty fun earlier. Like, we've got a pretty good first round, it feels like. I don't know. Apart from maybe like the Net series, what do you think? I think we might have some good series on our hands.
I think the Sixers Wizards series is going to be bad. I don't think that'll be close. Grizzlies
They
Jazz.
put up a fight today.
Yeah, they ended up losing by 7, but I just don't. I don't think. I don't know. Like Westbrook could drop 35, Beal could have 30, and they probably still could find a way to lose. That roster is just really not good. Bertans, I don't know what happened to him, and I don't have the numbers to back this up at all, but I just feel like he hasn't been very good in comparison, because I used to love, like, even last year I loved watching Bertans.
Just destroy the Magic.
Right. Precisely, yeah. But I loved watching Bertans last year, and this year I just feel like he's not been the supporting role, and I don't know if like bringing in Westbrook really messed him up for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that'll be a great series. I don't know. I don't think Jazz Grizzlies will be a great series either. Currently, as we say, I think the Jazz are up 10 right now in the start of the second quarter to the Grizz. Playing games were a lot of fun though, for the most part. Besides Wizards Pacers, where the Wizards, beat the Pacers by whatever it was, 15. So those were a lot of fun. I think those will be back next year. Did you like those?
I did. Whenever you get LeBron and Curry in the same game with high stakes, it's just like bound to be fun. Obviously, that game was just incredible. The thing that I don't like about the play-in games, I think you can still have the play-in games, but LeBron, Magic, anybody aside, I don't think it's really fair to the 7th seed, especially let's say they're like 3, 4, 5 games up on the 8th seed. I just don't feel like it's fair to them that, they lose 2 games in a row and their season is over. I think you can still have all the stakes if you do like 9 and 10 play, and then the winner of that plays 8, and then like 8 has to lose 2 in a row. Kind of how they did it last year, where like 8 played 9 or whatever, or however they figured it out, and 8 had to lose twice in order to go home. I think they should do something like that, in my opinion. I doubt they will. I'm sure this is the format that they'll move forward with, but I just don't really feel like it's totally fair to the 7th seed, like especially if you end up being 5 or 6 games up. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of silly in my opinion, but it was a lot of fun. It's hard to argue against that. Like Ja Morant against the Warriors the other night, that was a lot of fun. Like showed me that like I was kind of not really sold on Ja, And I'm not 100% sold on Ja yet. I think he can be really good. I don't know that I buy that he's like a, top 20 player, at any point in his career. Top 20, maybe that's not fair. Top 10, I'm still not sold that he's going to be that at any point in his career. But no, that I think it was like 35 points that he had. Obviously, he had like, the go-ahead bucket and everything like that. So, no, they were super exciting, super fun. I'm sure they'll be back. I know Adam Silver is kind of trying to use this as another opportunity to be like, look how awesome this play-in tournament was. What about a midseason tournament? I know he's trying to push that. So, but what about you?
Yeah. I like the play-in and the foundation, the basics of it, of like what it does. But I just feel like it goes against what the NBA playoffs are. Like I think the NBA playoffs, they do a 7-game series. They don't do a one and done. They make it, the best team is going to probably win, barring, bad injuries. The best team's going to win. So, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it's just like, I don't think the best team wins in a play-in. I just don't think. I think any fluky type game can happen, and all of a sudden that, the 8 seed who might have been a few games up on the 9 seed is now looking at being at home on their couch watching that 8 seed who was actually the worst team play. So I think that there's maybe some ways they could refine it. I don't know. And then, I just think that I didn't really like. I don't know if I like that aspect. I love the fact that it does feel like a March Madness type thing, but I don't know. I am kind of conflicted about it. So I'm just not sure. But they did produce some fun games. They were good. So, I'm sure that's kind of what they'll ride the wave of is, people tuned in, people seem to enjoy it. But I think that they got pretty lucky that it was Lakers, Steph versus LeBron in the first year of doing it. I think that really kind of boosted, the argument. But you're not going to have Steph versus LeBron every year. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have some bad teams playing in those games, and people just aren't going to tune in.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Like, they got super lucky that it was LeBron and Steph. Could you imagine if that wasn't the 7 and 8 game, if it was like the, 8 versus 9 game, and whoever lost that game actually went home? Because Warriors lose that game, and they're like, oh, shucks, but we've got another chance to beat Memphis. But if that would have been like the end-all, be-all, like that game would have just been so much more crazy. But you're 100%. Probably 9 out of 10 years, you're not going to have that type of marquee matchup, especially not with the type of history that those two have when it comes to postseason and everything like that. So, yeah, I agree with you. They got super lucky that it was LeBron and Steph. That pretty much is going to guarantee that we're going to see this next year and for years to come. But I would not be surprised at all if next year we're like, man, these playing games sucked. You know what I mean? Like, as good as they were this year, there's just as much room next year for them to be bad.
Yeah, there's going to be some times where that sucks. Luckily, I feel like a lot of the bad teams have fun young players now. Cleveland has young, fun players with, Sexton and Garland. The Pelicans have a lot of young players, don't even need to name them. The T-Wolves have young players that are good. Houston is going to be up and coming with teams that are good. So there are some really good possibilities that we'll have some great play-in games in the next 5 to 10 years. However, yes, you're going to have years that are just duds where your ratings suck because that team's terrible. And the other thing is like, determining the 8 seed, that game to determine the 8 seed can be good, and I do think that is a good aspect of it. Of like, you're gonna have a game where like you cheer on 2 teams that like are gonna get waxed in the first round, but that's also what it is, right? Like, we're cheering on 2 teams that are just gonna get just shown the door in probably 4 or 5 games in the first round. So that part kind of sucks. But there is a redeeming quality. If that game was really good, then people are just going to remember the play-in games as being really good.
Well, that's the thing. That's, I think, a lot of people's argument for the play-in games, where I'm like, it's not really fair to the 7th seed, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? Because the 7th seed is going to win at best 1 or 2 games, and then they're going to be shown the door and be on their way as the 1st and 2nd seeds kind of move on. But, I mean, these games, for the most part, were a lot of fun. I don't hate them by any means, But it would not surprise me if we have years where we're like, oh, the playing games this year just weren't really all that good, or they weren't really all that exciting. LeBron and Steph is probably, I would say forever, is probably going to be one of the best, most hyped up playing games ever, just because of the guys and the teams involved.
Yeah, you're never gonna get that again, I don't think. And guys, don't take this as me saying that I don't and didn't enjoy the playing games. Very much enjoyed the play-on games. I'm just having the same conversation with Jonathan that the NBA executives and stuff are and their headquarters are probably having the same conversations. You know, like just laying it all out there in terms of how it went over and whatnot. End of the day, it turned out to be great this year. I just don't know if it'll be able to continue that for the next several years, but I hope it does.
So Lakers down, like 13 at halftime, and I think they were down like 11 also like in some point in the second quarter before Steph just hits that ridiculous three. How worried were you about the Lakers' chances of coming back in that game or not?
Yeah, I don't know, because that's the risk you run playing against Steph Curry, right? Like, at any point there's a chance that Steph is going to just go off. Like, that was something my friend was saying was it someone was saying like they just need LeBron. LeBron just needs to, like, if LeBron gets hot, it's over. And I was like, yeah, but to be honest, there's a far more likelihood that Steph gets hot and it's over. Like, conversely. So I definitely thought that the Lakers just like didn't finish well, and today against the Suns just continued to further my concern. This team, that team is just not good, like, comparatively. Like, if LeBron is not on the court and Anthony Davis is who Anthony Davis is, I don't think that they're going to get past the Suns, and which was why it's crazy to me, and I'm interested to see how the odds shift. But like, coming into this, Vegas odds-wise, the Lakers were favored to win the title with the Clippers right behind them. Now you've got Lakers go down game one, you've got the Clips go down game one, and so, but that's the other thing, right? Like, everybody's on Twitter like, hey, are we overreacting yet to game one? Like, when does that happen? And it's like, yeah, we're probably overreacting to probably the Clippers game, because guess what? They play tomorrow and they're still favored by like 7 points now, and they were favored like 5 the first game. So, the odds are going to play out. I hope the Mavericks win that series. But with the Lakers, man, like, I saw it against the Warriors. Yes, it was a great game, but also I just think that like both teams are not championship teams, and I think that's what it boils down to. Golden State played a great game, yes. But I just don't know. I don't know what the Lakers are going to do, and maybe by the end of this, like the Lakers are going to we'll record this, put it out, and then people might remember me saying this when the Lakers win in 5 or 6 games. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. This falls into the overreacting of game one, but it also kind of, I'm factoring in the play-in games too, where like I'm not sold on the Lakers. And I just kind of was trusting Vegas with the fact that they were favored, but just seeing that game today, Devin Booker balled out. If Anthony Davis steps up, series can take a turn for sure. But LeBron had a mediocre game for his standards as well, so kind of that sucked. But
that's where I'm at. Like, the series with the Lakers and the Suns for me is really going to come down to health. Like, how healthy is LeBron? How healthy is Anthony Davis? Because if those guys are healthy, we've seen time and time again. The beginning of the year, they're like 21-5 or 21-6 before they really started to get hit with injuries. So I don't know that I'm willing to go as far as say like this team just isn't a contender, because LeBron had a pretty mediocre game, but I would go as far to say that Anthony Davis had like a bad game, and Anthony Davis looked pretty bad against the Warriors as well. If Anthony Davis becomes Anthony Davis again, then this series just like completely shifts. Chris Paul hurt today. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Devin Booker looked incredible. DeAndre Ayton looked incredible. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate that like another 3 times. I think he shot like 10 of 13 or like 10 of 14 from the floor, like something ridiculous like that. But if Anthony Davis, I tweeted today, I said, it's going to be hard for the Lakers to win a title if Anthony Davis is going to be mid, because that's exactly what he was today. Like, he was super mediocre. DeAndre Ayton just completely outplayed Anthony Davis today.
Which is not how I thought it was going to go. I thought that if AD plays the 5 and is matched up against Ayton, I really thought that AD might just eat Ayton's dinner, like eat it. And that's what I thought was going to happen. But when AD comes out and scores 13 on 16 shots, like AD was 5 for 16. And I hate to like talk about plus minus that much, but in this situation, I think it's very valuable. AD was a minus 18 today, while nobody else was below minus 9. And LeBron was tied with Montrezl Harrell for the best plus minus with plus 2. And they lost by 9. So there.
And it wasn't even that close because Caruso hits like a 3 with like 3 seconds left that just didn't matter. It's
right.
really like losing by 12.
No, the Sun. I talked to a buddy of mine who's a Suns fan, and he was like, that was insane to me and not how I thought the game was going to go. We controlled what felt like the whole game.
Yeah.
And, CP goes out, momentum changes, CP comes back. I mean, I really do think that CP obviously, like, goes without being said, huge contributor to the Suns and is a big reason for their success. It did feel like whenever CP3 stepped out of the game and whenever LeBron stepped out of the game, respectively, those teams just, like, took a turn. And Booker played incredible today, but I do think that like it's a testament to the leadership of LeBron and CP that like when they were out of the game, it just felt like the wheels fell off and teams would start to come back or make up ground or extend leads. It was it's going to be I think it'll be a fun series. The first 6 minutes of that game were absolutely incredible. Players just going back and forth and at each other, and it definitely felt like if that's what the series is going to be, it's going to be a classic. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see kind of what happens.
Well, so like a few weeks ago, before LeBron came back, Anthony Davis had that big game. It might even have been against the Suns. I don't really remember. But after the game, he's screaming, I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
And it's like he just completely has disappeared since then for the Lakers. So it's to me, the whole series is going to come down to – I know LeBron's going to get it going. It's going to come down to if AD is AD, and we'll see what happens. But – it's going to be exciting. I think the first round is shaping up to be really, really great so far, apart from a couple of series.
Yeah.
But hopefully we have some good playoff basketball for the next few months here. So the Magic, we're just about 4 weeks away from the NBA draft lottery, where the Orlando Magic they share the best odds in the lottery with Houston, with Detroit. All have a 52.1% chance of ending up in the top 4. Each of those 3 teams has a 14% chance of ending up with the number 1 pick overall. So, Luke, we're going to go ahead, run the tankathon here. Let me go ahead and share my screen for you, buddy, so that you can share in the delight that is the tankathon. Just let me know when you can see this here.
Yeah, I gotcha.
All right, so we're going to run this. Everyone knows the rules at this point. You get 1 run at the tankathon. If you run it more than once, just don't share your results because they don't matter. Mm-hmm. So we're going to sim the lottery here. Orlando ends up with the number 2 pick overall and the number 10 pick from Chicago. I can live with this, Luke.
I'm
definitely very happy with that.
And I'll tell you why you can live with that, because I spun once right before you did on my tankathon, and I got Orlando with the 6th pick and Chicago with the 10th. So
yeah, not ideal.
No, it's not. So I'm hoping that I would love a result where Magic get the 2nd pick, Bulls get. If the Magic get the number 2 pick, I really couldn't care less where that Bulls pick falls. I really don't. If the Magic get the 2nd pick and the Bulls get the 4th, I don't care.
You don't care about if they get the 1st pick?
If they get the 1st pick, it'll
sting.
It'll sting a little bit, but I will still be able to fall back on. Well, at least we didn't get the 6th pick.
Yeah, very true.
Because if the Bulls get the 1st pick and the Magic fall out of the top 4, I don't know if I'll be able to record. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't.
Be pretty bad.
I'll have to contemplate it and see where I'm at. But
I think I'll be good with the Bulls really landing anywhere other than number 1, as long as we end up in the top 3. Like if we end up in the top 3, the Bulls end up with like Evan Mobley, and we end up with Jalen Green. I'll be okay with that. Now, do the Bulls pick Evan Mobley? Probably not. They just traded away for Vooch. But, like, I'm just trying to think of what scenario I would be okay with. Maybe they take Jalen Suggs instead at number 2. I don't really know.
By all means, go ahead.
I don't think it would make a lot of sense for the Bulls to take, like, a Jalen Green. Do you? Like they've already. Zach LaVine is one of the most common comps that I've seen of Jalen Green, and you already have Zach LaVine. So, I mean, Kobe White. Are they sold on Kobe White? I don't think so. So maybe Jalen Suggs is the pick for the Bulls at 2. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting.
So I wanted to bring something up because you and I talked about this on the last podcast.
Yeah.
We started to talk about Jalen Suggs, and you basically said that you would rather have Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs, okay? Again.
Let me be clear. I don't want either of them, but I am just saying yes. And
okay. I went and watched the film, and you were out of pocket for saying that.
No, I'm not.
Scotty Barnes, I do like Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
Plays with a ton of energy. Is probably going to be a great defender in the league.
Yeah.
Offensively, it just ain't there. Like, he is just not there yet. I don't think he's going to be quick enough to get past guys like he was at points at the college level. The three-point shooting is certainly not there. So, if it comes down to it, I'm taking Jalen Suggs over Scotty Barnes, and I'm not thinking twice.
That's
like, I watched more film on Jalen Suggs. I still don't get why people have him over Jalen Green. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. You watch the film, one guy jumps off the screen at you, and one guy is like, okay, he does some nice things, but still taking Jalen Green over Jalen Suggs 10 out of 10 times.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Jalen Green for sure. Yeah, I don't let me be clear. I will be irritated if the Magic end up with Barnes or Suggs. I'm not in love with Barnes. It's mainly a slight of Suggs. I just don't. He doesn't do it for me. I got the confirmation that I needed last week that I don't need to be in love with Suggs, and I'm not just missing something about him. Listen, if Suggs becomes incredible, then we'll forget this conversation ever happened because that'll look really bad on my part. But that's also the fun of the draft. I love when people don't think a player is going to be good. I love when somebody that goes late in the first round or second round ends up being a good NBA player and really a contributor to the team. I think this is a really interesting dynamic because I do feel like Suggs is pretty polarizing. I just feel like there are a lot of people that are also saying, yes, some people are saying he's a top 4 or 5 pick worthy player. I also know some other people that are saying he's not a top 5 player to me, and I don't see what people see in him. And maybe, that big shot he had in March Madness kind of turned it, people's attention to him even more. So I don't know. I don't know what it'll be, but I like you said, yeah, I'm taking Green over Suggs every day of the week.
Hitting a game-winning buzzer beater in March Madness like that, brings some clout with it.
It's a euphoric experience for sure.
I think that's what it is. I really think that shot, because people, to be fair, people were talking about him being a top 3-4 pick the entire season at Gonzaga. He was always part of the conversation, but I think, especially from Orlando Magic fans, I think that was elevated with that shot that he had against UCLA. So I went back and really started to watch film on a lot of these guys that we have talked about, from Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Kuminga, Moses Moody, who I know you're a big fan of, that hopefully we could get with the Chicago pick if that falls out of the top 4, and then Scotty Barnes. So these were my takeaways. I get it with Cade. Cade is by far the guy that is the furthest along in terms of just his overall skill level. The concern I have with Cade before I watch the film, I still have. That the times that I watched, it's just, why are you not taking over? Why are you waiting until this point in the game to turn that extra gear on? Now it's good to see that he has that extra gear, but I still have that question. But when you just look at the overall skill set and what he's able to do on both ends of the floor, I would say that he is the furthest along as far as a playmaker, his ability to get into the lane, to finish from the post, the three-point shooting, the defensive ability, all of that stuff. He is the furthest along out of any of these guys, in the top 4 or 5 there. And then Evan Mobley, the potential that he has to just be an absolute menace defensively, definitely there. The ball skills that he's shown flashes of, I saw that in the film that I watched of him. Not as good of a three-point shooter as I had initially thought. Again, I believe it was around 30%. But the form doesn't look broken. I don't love the free throw percentage. But just he is probably what we hoped Mo would be. Mo's probably a little bit further along of a shooter, like when he first came into the league, but the defensive ability, the ability to finish at the rim and everything like that, pick and roll lob threat, like Evan Mobley is absolutely that. Jalen Green, I didn't learn anything when I watched that film. This is what Jalen Green is, just absolutely freak athleticism. Is developing as a playmaker, but his ability to create space and get his own shot basically whenever he wants. If he can just knock that down with more repetition, like the kid is just going to be an offensive superstar in my opinion. And then Kuminga, I mean, not as good of a defender as I remember. Like he's got some flashes of being a really good defender, but I remember him being like this menace in the few Ignite games that I watched. And so if it's Kuminga or it's Suggs, I'm really going to be upset if we end up with a top 5 pick. For me, it's Cade, it's Mobley, it's Green, or the draft is starting off bad. And then Moses Moody, I see what you see in Moses Moody. I had kind of thought, I'm like, Moses Moody, but a lot of people were talking about James Bouknight. I went and watched James Bouknight. He has put up some numbers, but I'm not in love with the shooting form. I would rather Moses Moody, I think, between those two guys.
Yeah, Moses Moody's good. Moses Moody is a guy that people aren't thinking about too much yet, but they will soon. In terms of, the Magic are so enthralled with like a top 4 pick and who they're gonna get there, but like we know who. I just feel like it's pretty much a general consensus of who the Magic fan base wants. Like the Magic, if it's not Cade at 1, it's Jalen Green, and it should be that. Like that's what the Magic need. And and then they'll start thinking about other guys like Moses Moody, who will be great to have. I mean, that he would be pretty incredible to be able to add just to that young core. I mean, that's it. I have a hard time talking about this because I'm like, have we already discussed this? Like, are we talking in circles right now about this? But like, with things that I've said, I know that I've said similar things about Moody that people probably aren't thinking about him yet. But yeah, so and like you said, Cade is far away. I know you kind of had you definitely have been, leading the Jalen Green train for a while now. And to the point where you were almost kind of split on like, would I be upset if we got Cade, not Jalen Green? But then did you have kind of a revelation last week watching Cade film of like, okay, I'm definitely great with getting Cade.
Oh yeah, I definitely had a revelation because it was just like Jalen really just checks like the ISO scoring threat box, like the athleticism and everything like that, like which I feel like the Magic desperately need. I feel like he's going to be a really good shooter, and I think the fit is so good with what we already have. When you talk about Markelle and Chuma and Jonathan and everything like that, I feel like you just kind of plug Jalen in. With Cade, then I'm starting to question like other guys' roles. Like, what does this mean for Markelle? What does this mean for Chuma or Jonathan Isaac? Things like that. But when you look at just, again, all of the boxes that Cade checks, like solid defender, great playmaker, can get to the rim, 3-level scorer, is arguably a better shooter than Jalen Green is right now. He's not the same athlete, so the only concern I would have about Cade is like, can this guy just get to his spots, which he did in college? But if you look at Luka, he's not the most athletic guy in the world, which there are some shades of Luka that people have made comparisons to Cade. But if you look at a guy like that, if you're good enough, you're going to get to your spots. Like Paul Pierce wasn't the most athletic guy in the world, but Paul Pierce was getting to that elbow. Right. There was nothing that you could do about that. And I feel like Cade might have that. And I just feel like Cade right now checks more boxes than any of these other prospects. So, yeah, I definitely had a revelation watching that. I was like, the more film that I watched, I was like, okay, I get it. But my main concern with him is still like the mentality. Like, are you just going to be able to be this killer night in and night out? Like you would hope your consensus #1 overall pick would. With that being said, I am not going to lose a wink of sleep if the Magic end up with Jalen Green rather than Cade Cunningham.
Right.
So all that being said, Luke,
there's nothing else to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we look at a lot of these prospects, I think and it feels like it's been this way for 3 or 4 years. Every draft, it's like, now we have to draft a shooter. Now we have to draft a shooter. Now we have to draft a shooter because for the past 8-9 years, the one thing you can look at this team and say is they lack shooting. And you go up and down the roster right now, I feel like that is where we are still at. You still lack shooting. So for us, it's like Cade, great shooter. Jalen Green, probably going to be a really good shooter. And then when we start talking about that Bulls pick, it's like Moses Moody, going to be a really good shooter. Like, these are the guys that we are, like, just really targeting. So I kind of wanted to go through the roster, as quickly as, we might be able to do here and just kind of get our feelings for each guy, how you feel they fit with the team and whether or not they're going to be on the team next year. And we'll just kind of do this in alphabetical order. So first up is Cole Anthony. Your thoughts really quickly on Cole. Obviously, Cole is going to be on the team next year.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, he'll be on the team next year. Yeah, I mean, love what he was able to do once he got in a rhythm. Hopefully he continues to, up his efficiency and be a great point guard or shooting guard for the Magic, and I think he'll be probably a shooting guard next year.
I saw a graphic. I forget who put it out, but it was like every team's most clutch player, and the Orlando Magic, they just left as like NA. In my opinion, it's Cole. Like, anybody that's on the roster right now, even when Jonathan Isaac and Markelle come back, like, if you're telling me we need one shot, I'm probably going to give the ball to Cole just because he is like that 3-level threat. Like, he can shoot the three, he can get to the rim. If he gets fouled, you're probably going to make the free throws, can hit the mid-range. Where with Markelle, it's like, okay, if they stop him from driving, then we're going to hope that he's going to hit a three. Outside of those two guys, I mean, I don't know who else you would have wanting to take that shot, but pretty early on, Cole has shown us the ability that he can make that shot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they would put NA there. Just tell us you don't watch the Magic,
Right.
And tell us you haven't seen his 2-game winners. I mean, he's not scared of the moment, and he is more confident than we are that the shot's going to go in when he takes it, regardless of the circumstance. So, yeah, that's a stupid thing that they didn't put.
Tell me you don't watch the games without telling me you don't watch the games.
Without telling me.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so Dwayne Bacon. So let's look at the numbers this year. 10.9 points, 3.1 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 40% from the floor, 28% from the three-point line. Your thoughts on Dwayne? Is he on the roster next year?
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, he's on the roster next year. You're paying him $1.8 million, and that's it. Like, he's on the roster in some capacity. Who are you? Like, I get it, but what player for $1 million are you gonna get besides that's like better than Dwayne Bacon? Like, Dwayne Bacon's not great, but for $1 million, he's there. He's got one more year on his contract. That's a growing year. He hopefully can kind of help the young players, get into a rhythm and coach them a little bit. Hopefully takes more of a backseat next year when the team has more of an identity. He's what, fifth oldest player on the roster. So, yeah, he's there next year. It's $1 million, man. It's one more year.
I think a lot of the frustration with Dwayne was that he was never supposed to be what he ended up being for the Magic. Like, he was also always supposed to be like your, backup small forward or, third shooting guard if you look at Fournier and you look at Ross. And then just with the injuries, it was basically, he was the only guy that played in every game for the Magic this year. So it was just like we have Dwayne Bacon basically out of necessity, career highs in minutes, field goal attempts this year. Like, we were not ever supposed to see this much Dwayne Bacon. So I'm probably with you.
Yeah.
He's probably back next year, but not in the same capacity
I don't think,
as what
people,
we saw this year.
No, and I think that people might be worried and they might look at Dwayne Bacon and be like, man, is this like another MCW situation where he just plays because Cliff loves him? No, that's not going to be the case at all. I don't think. I think Dwayne simply was just available. Like, that's what is the first step of being a great NBA player, is being available. And that's one of the greatest things in life, is just being available. And Dwayne Bacon was available. He was the most available for the Magic, and I can respect it. He stayed out of any type of injury, and good for him. He might have sold himself to another team, after this contract runs up for more than just $1 million. But yeah, he's not going to be in the same role. He just happened to be there, and they had to plug him in because he's he's there.
Next up, Mo Bamba. So he is heading into the final year of his rookie deal. This year in 46 games, career high 8 points, career high 5.8 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 47% from the floor, 32% from the three-point line. I'm going to say yes. Mo's on the roster next year. They're going to give him – this is going to be his prove-it year. I don't know that he gets extended this summer. I really don't. They might write it into, like, restricted free agency and, give him a qualifying offer. I don't see anybody, really paying him that much in the, the open market. So if the Magic see something from him next year and, want to give him another prove-it year or then want to sign him to an extension, that is, in the cards. But I would be surprised if the Magic extended Mo Bamba this summer.
Yeah, and especially you go into the territory of if the the hypotheticals of like, which is probably the most interesting hypothetical to me if you're a Magic fan. If the Magic draft Evan Mobley, what do you do? Because you've got both. Do you just ride it out that year, like next year, and just not play? I mean, Cliff's not scared to not play Mo. We've seen it so many times. And now you've got Wendell Carter Jr., who, yes, Mo has a higher ceiling, but feels like Wendell is just more polished. And I just feel like Mo will be on the roster next year. Even if they draft Mobley, they'll just stash him on the bench. And then next offseason will be very interesting. If Mobley does take a leap, WCJ has played, whether it's, in front of Mobley for the first part of the year and then takes a step back and becomes the backup. I mean, his team option, WCJ's team option is $6.9 million next offseason for 21-22. And Mo is 7.5. So I don't know. Maybe they pick up Wendell's option and deal Mo at the end of next year, whatever. But I really don't know. I do think Mo is still on the team next year, regardless. All that to say,
I think he's still on the roster just because I just don't know that the Magic are going to end up picking Evan Mobley. But I feel like a little bbit different from you. If the Magic draft Evan Mobley, it's because they've given up on Mo. Like they feel like they have a really good piece in Wendell. Maybe you probably start the season with Wendell at the starting center, and then you just kind of ease Evan Mobley along. He's going to need time to learn the NBA and to fill out, especially the frame is what really concerns me with him is this going to be another Mo Bamba project where it's going to be 3 or 4 years before he's really, really good because of the frame. He did have some issues at USC with bigger centers. So, I think Mo Bamba's still on the roster next year, but I feel a little bit different from you. I think if you take Mobley, then that means that Mo's gone. I feel like you've given up on him at that point.
Well, that's essentially what I said, that Mo's going to be stashed on the bench. Like, that's what that means.
I think he's gone. Like, they would move him. They would trade him, something.
Oh, you think they're moving him?
If you take Mobley, I think he's gone.
Yeah, okay. I gotcha. Yeah. Who's next on the list?
Ignas Brazdeikis.
Yeah,
gone.
He's gone. I don't even have to.
We don't have to spend a lot of Iggy, nice meeting you. See you later.
Yep.
Michael Carter Williams. You like how I merged the two together? They did. I know you don't know Dragon Ball Z, but it was a little bit of a fusion there. Michael Carter Williams. Is Steve Clifford still the coach?
Yes.
Moving on, in my opinion. No, Michael Carter Williams will be back. I hope he is. I think he is, one of those veteran guys that needs to stick around to bring along some of the young guys. Mm-hmm. I just hope we don't get him just jammed down our throat like we have, each of the last couple of seasons here. He's giving me weird looks. I'm not even going to pay attention to
that. I think he's still there. He's still
there. Wendell Carter Jr., I think yes. Really like what we saw out of him post-trade deadline. Had some up and downs. I think the last part of the season, the last few games, he's dealing with the eye issue. We never really heard what that was. Like if it was a corneal abrasion, like a corneal abrasion is like a real serious eye injury, like extremely painful, can mess with your vision. You don't even want to open your eye most of the time. So the only thing that I can think of, unless he had like a detached retina, which he just wouldn't be playing whatsoever. I'm coming from like an ophthalmology background here, so this is kind of my jam. I know what I'm talking about. The only thing that makes sense to me for him to miss that many games is, one, just straight up tanking and lying, or if he had some type of corneal abrasion, which can really mess with your ability to play basketball. So I'm not holding that too much against him, but I do think we kind of just saw like a little bit of a roller coaster with Wendell. Like, looked amazing, then looked okay, then looked amazing, then looked okay. I don't think, and let's get your opinion on this, I don't think he looked bad at any time with the Magic, but there were other times where I'm like, okay, maybe he's not a starting center.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he is a starting center, man. I just think that he's not going to be a star. Like, he's never going to make an all-star team. He's just there. He's going to get you some boards. He's going to not do the wrong thing. He's just there. And that's all I need out of a center. If you get me a scoring guard and we've got Kel and Cole and J.I. and Chuma, I don't care what the center does as long as they're not making mistakes, and I think WCJ is that guy.
Let me be perfectly clear. I do think he's a starting center, but there were points where I'm like, okay, if he's more down than he is up, like we saw two different versions of him, if he's the worst version, which I think Chicago for the most part saw in his almost 3 years there, if that's him, then maybe he's not like a starting caliber center, but I do feel like he is. I still believe in Wendell Carter Jr., and I'm right there with you. Like, worst case scenario, he's just okay, and he's like our fourth, fifth option offensively, and he's a really pretty solid defender. So high on Wendell. He'll definitely be back next year. James Ennis, let's pull up the numbers here. So this season, 8.4 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 43% from 3. What do you think?
I made a tentative list, right? Like you said, hey, we're probably going to talk about this on the show. So I, rushed real quick to the payroll and, whatever, and just started making a list on my notes, right? I have got a section that is gone. I've got a section that is staying, and then I've got a no clue section. James Ennis is on my no clue section. He's a guy that like the Magic are going to have to re-sign him. This past year he made $3.3 million. Do you bring him back, and are you able to bring him back for less, or does he hover around the same? I'm not incredible with the payroll and what the team's got left to work with. I haven't really even looked at it because I'm just so focused on the draft. So as of now, Ennis is on my no clue, but I would lean towards that he gets signed to like a very team friendly, similar to what he was on.
So I'm not 100% clear on all the salary cap space and everything like that in this coming summer. I do know that Otto Porter Jr., his almost $28.5 million is going to be coming off the books. Let's just get that out of the way. Otto Porter Jr. probably not back. But my understanding is that the Magic should have some flexibility to make some small moves like that. Like if you're going to, instead of $3 million, if you're going to give James Ennis $6 or $7 million, on like a 2-year deal, $14 million, I'm okay with that. Like maybe a little bit of an overpay, but it's a guy that you know what you're going to get. He's familiar with the team. He's a good high character quality vet that's going to help bring the guys along. So if you're going to give James Ennis somewhere between like $5 to $7 million a year, like a 2-year deal, I'm okay with that. Like I don't think that's a huge overpay. The thing with James Ennis, so when we made the trade for Ennis, it was we're acquiring a shooter. And then what we really saw out of James Ennis, and let me just kind of pull up his numbers again, go back to the previous year with the Magic. So, so last year he only shot 28.6% from 3. So after the trade deadline, we're like, okay, we're trading for a shooter, and the guy shot freaking 28%. Now, he's a 36% career three-point shooter, but he shot 43% this year. Probably not going to get back to 40% again, but if he's anywhere from like 36 to 38%, like that's a guy, in my opinion, that the Magic should keep. Like really, really good glue guy, hustle guy, energy guy, solid defender. Like I'm totally okay with bringing back James Ennis. I'm with you there. I'm not really sure if they bring him back, but I would bring him back if I was the Magic.
It's just a matter of, like, with Otto Porter coming off the books, what you've got to do with free agents. Because, and we can kind of let's continue to go through the list here, Jonathan, and then we'll kind of see where we're at in terms of who's staying, who's gone.
Markelle Fultz next.
Yeah.
Staying.
Okay.
RJ Hampton obviously staying. Now, this is something that I said to you the other day, and this is going to be a little bit of a hot take. I've cooled a little bit. I was a prisoner of the moment, but I do feel like there's a chance that eventually RJ Hampton is the better player between him and Cole Anthony. I texted you and I said, I think RJ is going to be better than Cole. I've cooled on that a little bit. I do think he has the potential. This really came from watching the Orlando Magic Pod Squad episode that he did with David Steele, Jeff Turner, Dante Marchitelli, because I just love the kid. I watched that interview, and you're like, you just fell in love with him. I'm like, that smile, that damn smile.
If the Pod Squad dropped a Cole episode the next day, what would you be saying?
I don't know. I feel like we know Cole's personality. I feel like we know what we would get out of Cole. With RJ, like, you always have the sense of that he's a confident kid, but it came through so much so in that episode. If you haven't listened to that, you need to. If listeners haven't listened to that, you need to. But he just came across like so, I hate to say charming, but he came across charming. He came across very confident, and I know that kid is going to absolutely work his butt off. That kid would drive from Little Elm, Texas to Memphis to work out with Mike Miller while he was still in high school. So, like,
hey, you want to feel old for a second about RJ? And yes, that's incredible. You want to feel old for a second? It is one thing to tell me that RJ Hampton is just 20 years old and he turned 20 in February. It is a whole other thing to tell me that RJ Hampton was born in 2001.
Yeah.
That still blows my mind.
I remember 2001
like, that is a part of
vividly.
I mean, that is insane to me. So, yes, RJ, I also say that to say RJ is young. He's hungry. I would definitely reply if anybody ever, is comparing RJ and Cole. I just reply with the "why not both" gif.
Right.
And that's how I feel about the guys. I love both of them. I love that we have these conversations and we're able to have these conversations about which guy we love more, essentially, because we don't dislike either of them.
We really don't.
We love both.
We're really
of them.
quite fond of both.
We don't
of them.
dislike.
This has been a rough year,
absolutely.
but like I just think of these guys and I've got this grin on my face right now. Like I love Cole, I love RJ. Like we gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Like this year sucked, but like we're probably gonna be all right. That's a really good feeling to have. Next up, Gary Harris.
Yep. Yeah.
I know you're a big Gary guy. You're a big Gary Harris guy. Where did that come from? I don't. Right. I must have missed that joke.
Dude, I have been so just ashamed of myself that I haven't even asked that question. So maybe somebody can clarify for us, because I see it and I'm like, I can't even laugh because I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not up with
I must have missed that joke.
I'm not up with that.
I must have been in the bathroom when that happened on like a broadcast or something. I really don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
so
idea.
Gary Harris, I mean, $19 million this year, back. $20 million next year. I think he's back just because he's like, RJ was the gem of that trade, and I think we can all say that the Magic won that trade now. Denver fans, they might feel differently, but Gary Harris was definitely the guy that like you're taking the flyer on. Like still young, still a good defender. Can he turn it around offensively? $20 million. The thing, we'll talk more about the cap space, but like I just don't think the Magic are going to be big players, in free agency, going and trying to sign guys that they don't already have. Jonathan Isaac, the young GOAT. Like, that's all I need to say about Jonathan Isaac. Magic definitely keeping Jonathan Isaac. Chuma Okeke, whatever you think about his musical skills, throw it out the window. This past week, Terrence Ross, the T. Ross podcast, had Chuma Okeke on the show. Did you listen to that episode?
I have not gotten around to it, no. Life was pretty chaotic, so I haven't gotten to it, but I'll get there.
Terrence Ross basically said him and one of the assistants on the Magic, I forget which game it was, but they were like trying to have a conversation, like, who does Chuma's game remind you of? And they both said Kawhi Leonard. Magic fans have been saying this. Personality-wise, he's kind of a dry guy. Mm-hmm. At least from what we see, he seems kind of reserved and shy. But then just like the physical attributes, like the in-between game, Chuma's going to be a pretty good three-point shooter. So it's good to know that we're not the only ones and we're not totally delusional. Because if an NBA assistant and an NBA player are saying that about a guy, then I kind of feel vindicated about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I Terrence Ross, that's another story. But Chuma, yeah, I do love that he was, he's drawn comparisons with Kawhi not only in the fan base but with his teammates and his coaches. Just kind of all around. So, and I can see it for sure. And we've been saying that. I would listen, if Chuma ever gets to Kawhi Leonard level, I'll be ecstatic, obviously. And I hope he gets there.
You won't be able to find a pair of pants in his house. Pants will be off. I want to tell you this, Luke, really quickly. Next season, Cole, RJ, and Chuma are going to cost us like a combined $9 million.
It's beautiful.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
Cap space doesn't really mean a whole lot to us, but when you've got those three guys for less than $10 million, you're doing something right. All right, Otto Porter, I think we both can agree that he's probably gone. Yeah. The Magic saw like 4 or 5 games, if that, from Otto, making way too much money this year. I just don't see it making a lot of sense for the Magic to try to go out and re-sign Otto.
I loved Otto.
You feel differently about that?
No, all I'll say is I loved Otto a few years back when he was in Washington. John Wall got him paid because he kept setting up Otto Porter for three-pointers. I do like Otto, but I don't like him for $28 million and whatever he's going to ask for this offseason.
Chase and Randall.
Smell you later.
He's like your 6th, 7th guard next year. He's definitely gone.
Chase and Randall is 28 years old. Goodbye.
Yeah. Terrence Ross.
This is interesting. T. Ross is interesting to me. I don't know. He's a don't know for me. I don't know. And I don't know if it's simply because of what – I don't know. I just felt like he was so disconnected. And I don't know if he's, like, fully embracing the, like, I'm the oldest on the team. I'm the vet. Like, I'm going to take my kids to Dave & Buster's. What's up? Well, the Magic are playing. But, like, just – I don't know. It's not that it didn't sit well, but I'm almost there. He shot he dropped off this year, in my opinion. He started the year incredibly hot and then finished the year. Do you have his stats in front of you? Because I'm blanking. I think he shot a pretty average percent from 3.
33%.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is Gary Harris like push him up into the slot where T. Ross was? Off the bench, hit some threes. Gary Harris had a better 3-point percentage. I don't know, and relatively, I'm guessing T. Ross shot more threes, but T. Ross also played a few more minutes. But I just wonder, like, I don't know. Do you keep Ross? I just feel like, is it weird to say, like, I feel like it's a Ross or Harris thing?
I don't feel that way. So something that I've come to learn just over the last couple of years as I pay more attention, to people's opinion around the league, about the Magic and things like that. It's not always about whether or not a guy is actually a good shooter. A lot of times it's what is the perception of him. And I think the perception of Terrence is still like he's that microwave. So whether or not he's actually going to be hitting threes, I think the gravity that he's going to create offensively, guys are like, you're just not going to leave Terrence Ross because he's Terrence Ross. Like, he's a guy that's known as a good shooter, especially the last couple of years. So did he drop off a little bit this year, as far as like the shooting numbers go? Absolutely. But especially once guys started to go down, I think it was so easy for other teams to zero in on Terrence and be like, oh, if Terrence doesn't make any shots, they just have no chance. Nobody else is going to be able to do anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
So in previous years where it's like, okay, yeah, you really have to watch Terrence. Like, you might, double team him coming off a screen or something like that. Like, this year it was that to, like, the nth degree. Like, if he's not getting it going, the Magic are just dead in the water, especially the second unit. So I think there was some of that. I think put better players around him and he's going to benefit from that. Like next year, if you're telling me once Markelle comes back that our second unit is like RJ, Cole, Terrence, maybe Mo Wagner and Mo Bamba, like if that's your second unit, I probably feel much better about Terrence getting better shots and probably shooting the ball a little bit better than he did this year. Does that change your mind at all? Or to me, does Terrence want to be here? Yes or no? If like a flow chart. If yes, he's here. If no, he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not even convinced myself that it's Gary Harris or T. Ross. That was simply me kind of proposing it and thinking of something that just kind of like, I don't know, hit me while I was putting together my like, you know, who's staying, who's gone, because you and I have had the conversation about T. Ross and like, is he disconnected? Is it a bad look that he's not at these games? Granted, if he wasn't there and then didn't post about being at like an arcade, would I feel better about it? Probably, but like, should that be the case? Probably not. Like, if he's hurt, he's hurt, and like that's players do that. They just don't go to the games. But yeah, so
these were away games. I really don't. So towards the end of it was really away games, which like normally
it wasn't necessarily
a guy
that he wasn't there.
Hurt,
it was just like he's not watching at all, which I get because the team's terrible. But
exactly, do I wish that he was like sitting there watching the games as intently as I was? Yeah, absolutely. But am I super upset that lost season, the last couple of games of the year, like he's spending time with his kids? I'm really not all that mad. Now, if he was out like getting hammered and was like on the town, yeah, maybe I would feel a certain way about it. Maybe the fact that he's with his kids makes me feel a little bit better. My sentimental dad side is coming out.
Right.
I really don't know, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I don't think that Terrence is like the veteran leader that you want for your team. I don't think that is exactly his personality. Is he a bad vet by any means? Absolutely not. But is he going to be like almost like a Udonis Haslem? No. That's just not who Terrence Ross is. But for me, I do want him back because obviously it's going to come into, you know, who the Magic draft. But if you have Gary Harris and you have Terrence Ross and you end up with a Jalen Green, maybe you want to make sure you have what you think you have in Jalen Green before you move on from a guy like Terrence Ross. I could totally see the Magic drafting, you know, Jalen Green or even like a Moses Moody if we end up falling out of the top 4. And then you're like, okay, we've got something with these guys. Maybe now we can move Ross to like a contender. So I think he's back for the start of the year. But this offseason, for me, it's just the front office has to ask him, like, do you still want to be here? Like, is this still a situation that you want to be in? Now, he just bought a new house in Orlando, just moved into a new house. So I would think that he wants to stay here. But I'm kind of with you. Like, I'm leaning towards staying, but I'm kind of like have one foot and I'm not sure. So,
I don't think I'd be surprised either way.
Yeah. Sindarius Thornwell.
Goodbye.
See you later. Thanks for the couple of weeks. God bless you. Wish you the best.
Right.
Moritz Wagner. This one I think is one of the more interesting questions that we have, whether or not he stays. I kind of want him to.
Do you?
I liked what we saw out of Moritz Wagner. Let me pull up his stats here.
Yeah, and it'll probably, you know, this year we paid him because it basically was like, what, prorated on like how many days he was with the Magic. But
yeah, he made $200,000.
$200,000, and his qualifying offer is just over $2 million.
I signed Moritz Wagner 1 year or 2 years, like $4 million a year in a heartbeat. Like, I think this team still needs some depth at like the 4/5. Maybe he's better suited as kind of like as a 5, but I mean, we saw him in some minutes at the 4, and I didn't totally hate it. But in 11 games with the Magic, he started 10 of those games, 11 points per game, shot 40% from the floor, shot 37% from the three-point line, almost 5 rebounds. Like, I'm totally okay if they decide they want to bring Moritz Wagner back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with him is, you know, his field goal percentage was not ideal, but his three-point percentage was more than okay. So I think if his role is just to, you know, he's not going to – the reason his field goal percentage was so low is because he had – to win the game, he had to – which is hilarious that, like, we had to have Mo Wagner be taking over the game to try to win it for Orlando this year. And it just is a testament to, like, what Magic fans went through. But next year, that's not going to be the case at all, guys. So, like, don't sweat it if Wagner's back. He's not going to take shots away from people. He is just going to stretch the floor for us in some situations, hopefully at the 4. and just gonna be able to knock down threes from time to time. That's all the Magic need. We're not looking for a star out of Wagner. I think that would be all right.
So I'm looking at Spot Track here, and again, I don't have a great handle on a lot of what these cap numbers mean, but they're saying Magic's practical cap space is going to be somewhere around $16 million. With like Otto Porter Jr. coming off the books and everything like that. So if you're gonna use a portion of that to re-sign guys like James Ennis or Moritz Wagner, I'm totally okay with that. And now we can wrap up here and kind of have the conversation on what the Magic should do in free agency. But my whole thing is they should not be big spenders this season. You just gave away Nikola Vucevic really to open up long-term cap flexibility. And, yeah, I mean, you've got to have guys on the roster next year, but you're going to get J.I. and Markelle back. You're going to add 2 first-round picks. So maybe this comes down to just whether or not the Magic are going to have enough roster spots to re-sign all these guys. Like, I could totally see Wagner being a casualty of that, or a guy like James Ennis being a casualty of that. But, yeah, I don't think the Magic should be aggressive in free agency. Like, if somebody comes to them and it's like, hey, my name's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I want to sign with you guys for $1 million a year. Obviously, something stupid like that, you say yes. But, like, you're really not searching out these guys. Like, if you need a role guy to fill a roster spot, you go for it.
You're filling at that point, because basically by the time I finished my staying list, I have basically 2 free agent spots.
Yeah.
And one of those can be, 1 or 2 of those could also be filled by a 2-way. So, like, no one's pressed from the Magic front office to, like, go out and get somebody this offseason. So if free agency is where your expectations are lying this offseason, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I just don't – it's not – I don't think it's feasible for the Magic. They're not going to have enough cap space quite yet, and then it's just not the time. Like, I was thinking, like, DeMar DeRozan is going to be a free agent this summer.
Nope.
And the last 3 or 4 years, that's been a guy that Magic fans have been like, oh, we should try to trade for DeMar DeRozan. Like, let's bring DeRozan here. Like, he's a big name. And I just started to think, like, man, what if the Magic have, like, $23 million in cap space and people start, like, the chance for DeMar DeRozan? Even though my brain knows it makes absolutely no sense for the Magic, I would start to have anxiety that the Magic are going to do something stupid, like sign DeMar DeRozan to, like, a 4-year, $90 million contract or something like that. It happens every time. When people wanted us to trade for Russell Westbrook, I felt this way. People wanted us to trade for Chris Paul. I was kind of wrong on that because Chris Paul's still awesome and he's very capable of elevating a team that's not very good. But I felt that way about Chris Paul when people were talking about that a couple of seasons ago. So free agency, not the move this year.
No.
Just sign guys to minimum contracts. Keep the guys that you have. Let's basically just run this back next year, see what we got.
You know who's off the books next year?
If I had to guess, probably Timothy Mozgov.
Timothy Mozgov.
What a freaking joke. Are we done paying C.J. Watson?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Right now we're paying Kim, Mozgov, and Jeff Teague.
So that's just for this year, though. Like, Kim and Jeff Teague should come off of the books.
They're
right?
off. They're off. Yeah. And
okay.
Mozgov will be the only guy that's not on the roster still getting paid.
I don't think Mozgov ever played a single game for the Magic.
No.
And still got, like, every penny of what he was owed. So good for him. He was showing up in his suits and his little knee brace.
Right.
Good for Mozgov.
Good for him.
All right. Well, next week we have a pretty cool episode planned. We're going to have a little round table. We're not going to announce who the guests are right now, but both of them have been on the show before. Really, really cool guys. We're looking forward to having those conversations. Luke and I have been working pretty hard at planning out, like, the whole off-season schedule the best that we can, just to keep bringing you guys, like, interesting episodes and everything like that. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. Luke, we got anything else, or we pretty much good?
No, I was just kind of wrap up the fact that I think that we'll have 2 free agent spots that, like, if the league allows you to carry 15 active. I think that that'll be the case. Sign a couple free agents with that remaining cap, nothing crazy. It should be a fun but anxiety-filled next couple months here.
I could see the front office just using both of those roster spots as 2 ways. And be like, okay, well, you're not going to have Markelle for, like, half the season, so odds are you're just still not going to be very good.
You get him for 45 days. So
Right.
there is a reason maybe to just fill what you've got left for the year,
Right.
just to do it, just so you don't have to cap out these guys at 45, like, a couple months into the year. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it'll be a huge priority for that front office, as it shouldn't be.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, 4 weeks to the draft lottery. That's what we're looking forward to now. I don't think the Magic have really announced anything. I've talked to a couple of you guys that want me to come over. Luke probably not going to make it. Big surprise, guys.
Yeah.
To the draft lottery. If the Magic do like a party at the Amway, I'll probably make it out for that. Apart from that, people are getting vaccinated, and COVID rates seem to be going down each day. So, maybe we can set up something like a meetup, downtown Orlando. Maybe I'll come through for a beer, and maybe more than one if it doesn't go well. I might have to crash at somebody's house because I'll just be, drowning my sorrows if the Magic don't end up with a high pick. But anyways, folks, thank you guys so much for listening to the Sixth Man Show. For Luke, this has been Jonathan, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.